women's side with BYU's performance and some course records that were not even fair to say that they were broken. I don't know what the right appropriate terminology would be, but the
Smashed.
women's course record was broken by 17 seconds. No woman had ever broken 19 minutes over 6K, and we had 6 women do that today. And then in the men's race, 30 seconds now faster, the course record from a record that was just set like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, Parker Wolf looked good when he did that, but I would have to say these athletes are rounding into shape at the right time, that's for sure. But one of the things I noticed here, Paul, before the gun goes off, you see a lot of athletes maybe standing with parents. And I can remember as an athlete going all the way across the country to Villanova, being able to come to nationals and pre-nationals. Those are the first times that we saw our family again. So you see a lot of athletes getting, a back rub or a hug or whatever. And, this is exciting for them to be able to show their hard work to their family and everyone else.
And for some of those family members that couldn't be with them today, hopefully they're being able to enjoy the sights and sounds and, by extension, feeling part of the atmosphere here in Madison by virtue of watching here on runnerspace.com and Big Ten Plus. As the final race of the day is underway, the men's B race over 8,000 meters will shortly populate the screen with the team rosters of the various groups from Belmont to Yale. You'll have plenty to cheer for here over the course of the next, 23, 24 minutes of racing action.
One of my favorite sights in athletics is right here, watching this mass of people getting off the line, sprinting as hard as they can for like 400 meters, and then settling in and having to run another 0.8 or whatever K.
See the squad from the Florida Gators again. You're allowed more than the 5 you need to constitute your team score. So a lot of these squads bringing in their solid roster of 7-8 guys just to try to gauge where this team is in relationship to their goals and objectives for later on in the championship season. So much focus and attention paid to who's up here in front in the early going. But back in this pack, there are runners who are certainly coming out of this weekend having made really strong cases to their coaching staffs that I belong in that roster for the conference championship and maybe even some bigger stages later on. It's changed a bit. Obviously, the conference championships are important to a lot of schools, but in some cases, schools are racing past those conference championships as well. It's just kind of, the racing schedule is just quite a bit different based on, what you're potentially rewarded for. And most teams, programs, and coaches are ultimately rewarded by the trophy they win at the end.
Exactly. I think that's the thing is coaches take different races. They take a different approach to the different races, and some really want to have those conference titles. Some of them just want to get through to the big dance. So it's so fun to see what the athletes and what the coaches figure out how their seasons are going to go. But yeah, you're right. I mean, some of them might have looked at this meet being the big one before the NCAA. Some might go right past their conference and not really worry too much about it.
Reconnecting to our signal here at the front of the pack with that gator that follows them around through this 8,000 meters of running, just as we've had with each of the previous 5 races. 2,000 meters will be the distance where we get the first splits on the day. So halfway home to that first 2-kilometer split as they reach and pass the 1-kilometer mark. You see down on that course tracker where they are on that southern end of the course, and as well that elevation tracker that shows you in their first of 3 major climbs in this race course on this Saturday in October.
I love the course tracker. It's one of my favorite things to see. I mean, these athletes are working, they're so fit, they're so strong. It doesn't look like they're even going up a hill, but they sure are. They are going to climb. They have to hit this peak 3 times well, at least something that close to it. So the men have it 3 times, the women have it 2 times. And this is that first peak where you're feeling pretty fresh. You don't necessarily notice it too much, but they're getting a little taste of it, and they're going to hit it again as the race goes on.
Pretty healthy group of men here at the front, noting a couple from Washington State. One of the guys that we kind of will keep an eye on here in this race, arguably one of the top athletes in the entire field, is Evan Karui of Washington State, another freshman who's ranked second in the country, only behind Texas Tech's Ernest Chariot. So, again, didn't necessarily have to be that you had to be in the A race, and he's wearing bib 1522. I believe he's the man second from the left side of your screen, and then 1518 is his teammate Brian Barsaya. So Washington State won the women's B race, now trying to do some damage here in the men's B race as well. We see a lot of those Washington State Cougar singlets here near the front of the pack early on, Carrie.
A lot of people were wondering, how is Evans Karuri going to do? And, the temperature has gone up a lot. So if people want to compare cross-country times, it's a good thing to do on a day where you've had multiple races. But I would have to say that these later races have a little disadvantage because the temperatures have gone up. The ground looks like it's the same. There's, we're not in muddy areas where we really have beaten it up. It's a hard course right now, so it's a fast course. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of people wish that we would have seen how Evans Karuri would have matched up against the Graham Blanks and the Kip Rops and Samuel and all of the athletes that are in the A race. We'll have to wait until the end of November to see it all come to fruition.
They have just gone by that 2-kilometer split here, so I'm going to start to populate with those results. Evans Karui, Alex Partlow of Illinois, Benjamin Godish of Northeastern, and Mohamed Guled. And Guled coming back here as we talked about his performance at Roy Griak and trying to get himself in the mix here in the early going. William Sinclair of Illinois State, Barsaya of Washington State, Carson Necker of South Dakota State. Those are the top 7, as we also see now Illinois into the early lead, quarter of the way through the race with 66 points, followed by Purdue, Liberty, and Weber State.
Well, look how smooth Evans looks. He's checking his watch. He's making sure he stays on where he maybe has a sort of a pace that he's trying to run, getting through 2.5K here. He is known as the new kid on the block, but he is doing so well in his first cross-country season here. He just broke King Chez's and Edward Cheseret's, how many did he win, Paul? 11 NCAA championships, maybe more.
It was like a lot.
It was a lot, more than anyone has ever, and I should have that note in my mind. But he broke his record by 20 seconds in his first collegiate race. So Evans Karui is putting his name next to some of the greatest that we've ever seen with Edward Cheseret. So pretty awesome. But right here, he's not liking this. He's zigzagging and he's trying to lose everybody.
Cheserick 117. I had that note. I should know it better because I pretty much called every one of those races at Hayward Field as their stadium announcer during his career. But meantime, as you mentioned, Karui kind of weaving back and forth, trying to shake Utah Valley's Mohamed Guled, as they have now become a attached pair of leaders here in front, nearing 3K, 8 minutes on the clock, and they have broken away from the rest of the field. Very similar, Carrie, to what we saw in that women's B race just a couple of minutes ago with the 2 freshmen that went out in front, Brenda Cheptichir and Zina Cheptu. So it was Auburn, Washington State in that race. Here in the men's race, it's Washington State and Utah Valley, 1 and 2.
Well, this is interesting. I wish Evans Karui would just kind of relax here. He seems like he's getting a little hyped because of what's happening behind him with Mohamed Guled. And this takes away from your race. Yes, he might be head and shoulders above people on paper in this race, but he's still racing. And you and I called Mohamed Goulad's race at Griac. He was very well within himself. He ran a very calculated race. He might just be having a breakout race today. So I think now Evans is settled back in, but that spikes your heart rate. That makes you get a little bit fired up when you are worrying about what's going on behind you. Right now, right in front of you, step by step is what Evans should be worrying about.
Well, here comes the second climb of the 3 that they really see can take a toll on these athletes over the course of this 8,000 meters, cresting that initial hill, but more climbs to come as they're at that southern end, going into that slightly wooded area for just a few moments. So we lose traction from the signal here, and appreciate your patience as we'll recapture that signal here momentarily, go back to it as we see them continue that climb and continue to have that lead on the rest of the field, about a half kilometer away from our next split opportunity. That'll be the halfway mark at 4,000 meters. Karui still leading and still trying to shake Goulad here as he says, hey, you'd like to lead?
Well, one thing I saw at the Berlin Marathon just a few weeks ago was Kibiwat Kandier, who is one of the very fastest half marathoners we ever seen. He got real hyped up during the race, Paul, and had some words and ended up not having the race he wanted. Now, I believe Evans is fine. He just wants a little help up front, but it's something to remember, to keep your cool, to stay relaxed. This is the early stages of the race, and you know, it's just fun. I think what's going on is he's so close to him. Why not come up and maybe do a little bit of pace work with him?
And we've had one of our leaders just kind of go off and stop back there here in nearing the halfway mark of the race. And Goulad has taken the invitation by Karui and says, I'll take the lead. And in fact, I'll take the lead by inserting some pace to the lead as they're going to near the halfway point on a very quick first half of the race. A reminder, that course record of Parker Wolf stood at 23:04. We had 8 guys under that record in the run in the A race, including a 30-second improvement to the course record. And these guys kind of come through pretty quickly themselves at the halfway mark, as we'll get that 4K split here in just a moment.
Well, when Evans Karui ran that fast race that he did that he broke Edward Cheseret's record, he won by over a minute, so having some company is interesting.
And they just came past in 11:37.2. It's a second and a half lead for Goulad over Karui as now they come off of that climb and get the advantage of the hill, and Goulad getting more turnover than Karui and trying to extend that lead ever so slightly. So both these guys come through halfway home in relatively quick times. And the rest of the field now chasing him down. Santiago Gaitan of Southern Utah, Necker of South Dakota State, Walker of Purdue, Sinclair of Illinois State, and Partlow of Illinois. Marcia makes it 2 Washington State Cougars in the top 10. Peter Visser of Weber State and Jacob Peterson of Southern Utah. It looks like Purdue, for the moment, has the team lead, but it's a pretty competitive race there on the team side, Carrie, with Ohio State, Florida, Southern Utah, and Illinois all within about, 22 points of each other.
That is so fun to make sure you can hang on to your teammate and fight like crazy. When you're that close, you know that they are seeing the other athletes around them from different schools. So that'll be a fun finish. But here we're seeing Goulad's trying to put the pressure on Paul. He's trying to reel out the speed of Karui, but Karui is now attacking and getting back up on what I think looks like he's going to be back up on his shoulder soon. He's reeling him back in. He's still checking his watch.
They spend a lot of time looking at their watch.
They do. And I wonder if it's just that they're new to this and they're trying to stay on a certain pace, or just seeing how far they are in the race. I don't think we were allowed to wear watches when I was racing. We had to look at the sun.
Well, Karui, 5 meters back of Goulet here as they close in on the 5-kilometer mark. Second half of the race, you see the 2 splits that they had and a little bit of different tangent choices here on the race course. Goulet and Karui taking opposite sides of the course as Goulet makes the turn, and Karui maybe a little bit smarter there. That is obviously the shorter line to cut over to the other side, and that tangent between this S-curve of a portion of the course. You see it on that course tracker down below as the rest of that chase pack here trying to keep themselves within some kind of contact with the leaders.
Well, Goulet is maybe just in the zone right now, trying to put that hammer down and try to get some distance. He might not have just realized that he had a tangent to use on that one turn, and Karui really did. So Karui, if he can stay within himself and be able to navigate the course, that is going to help him. But Goulet is not, he's not losing any ground right now. Actually, he's gaining.
See some of the spectators racing over to that vantage point to kind of cheer on these leaders here. Now another good look up above in this 2 box as the leader, Goulet, maybe getting a few more strides and spacing between him and Karui. Still a lot of running left, a little less than 3 kilometers to go. Again, they're running 8K here in this pre-national non-championship distance.
Well, Goulet has been in races before with this season with BYU. He's put himself in there, and he is actually, you know, his coaches said he's one to watch. He's definitely somebody that's on the rise and has a big future in front of him. So, you know, he's got a good team. He's got some teammates around him to push, but he's really someone that's attacking these races, and we've seen that. We saw it right here. Maybe just like the Midwest, because he's running really well in Minnesota and now again in Wisconsin.
Well, the one thing we noted in that Griak race is just how you can't get in the zone at Roy Griak based on that course, which is of course on their golf course. Like every single step is, you know, kind of an undulating challenge to the runners here on this championship course. I mean, there are stretches here, Carrie, where you can just sort of like take a mental moment off, but he's really tried to push the pace here in this kind of third quarter of the race and has benefited from it. He was a second and a half behind at 4K, and that lead to be confirmed to be even larger now. We'll get a specific time delta between him and Karui here when he passes 6K in just a few moments.
Yeah, he has really put it on, and you're right. He was so strong on those hills, and even he was powerful on the downhill at Griak, and he's showing that here, using all of those stretches, and then even on the flatter portions, he's opening up and he's putting the pressure on. So here he is coming through 6K in 17:18. Let's see how far up he is. Wow.
So as he comes through 6K, officially at 17:18.2, we wait for Karui as he will come across, it looks like just about now, 17:29 and change. So he's added 10 seconds to the lead in the last 2K, and you can see Karui there still within eyesight contact, but Goulet probably not feeling the pressure at all here right now. And I have not seen him, as we've had for many of the races, a lot of the athletes looking behind. It seems like Goulet doesn't care about who's behind him. He just cares about how fast he can run at the lead head of the pack.
Well, even when we saw him race before, there is a little grimace on his face. He does look like he's in pain, but he held on in Minnesota here, and he's doing the same here. Karui is, though, moving. You can see him trying to use this downhill. He's got a little bit of a quicker turnover, but did he give up too much space? I think that's the question.
To be determined here over the next, last mile of the race, about 6.5 kilometers in. Goulet, definitely see it on his face, as Carrie mentioned here, starting to feel the effects of this quick pace out at the front on a day that has featured a lot of quick paces. None more so than those A races with new course records set on both the men's and the women's side. You see the team scoring now. Purdue still with the hold on that first place position. And again, a lot of competitiveness among that grouping between 2, 3, 4, and 5, with Ohio State now moving up into second, Illinois third, Yale followed by Washington State. .26 seconds for the spread for Purdue as they're 4th, 5th, 21st, 30, and 31st. Their top runners, Douglas Buckeridge, the sophomore, and Nathan Walker, the junior. They're 4th and 5th individually. Now, for the first time, we see Goulet take a huge look back. And at that point in the course, because there's that rise there on this final ascent, he couldn't see anybody, but it's not to say that Karui wasn't like lurking there just below the surface.
He is kind of lurking, and I do think that maybe he looks a little closer, but I don't think that Goulet can keep, he needs to keep this going here. He has another half K about before he really knows that he's got it. I mean, Karui's back there, but I don't know. They're both so good.
See those splits as Goulet perfectly happy to settle in with that lead pack early, was 4th through the first 2K, asserted himself, took the lead, moving up to first. Always hard to gauge just exactly how close second place is with his head-on shot. Again, it was about 11.5 seconds through 6,000 meters, maybe slightly closer, but not demonstratively slow or showing here as the race now moves into its final kilometer, and Goulet maybe going to get buoyed here by the fact that he's going to have this crowd urging him on to the finish line as he is trying to back up that win at Roy Griak in Minnesota with a win here at Prenats in the B race in Wisconsin.
I'm just doing some counting here, and I do think that he has at least 11, if not 14 seconds on him. So if he can just get around this bend, that crowd will bring him in, and he will be excited with another win under his belt going into November.
Seems like every race today has afforded us a little bit of a different story narrative, which also is what makes it fun to have all the races covered for you here. I know a lot of the focus and a lot of the viewers' interest was for those very first 2 races of the day that did deliver 2 championship caliber performances with those course records. But here, and even in the open races that preceded these B races, we've had good, competitive, and strong performance. Goulet now really feeling it in the legs here for this final climb. Had another look over his shoulder, crest the hill, and he's going to ease his way down, just kind of keep those legs moving as he moves into the final stretch, in essence, the final lap of the race.
He looked really good coming down that hill. I was a little concerned of when he was going up that hill. We have to remember to keep our feet real choppy, our knees coming up and chop up those hills, especially when we get tired. But the way he could stride out on that downhill, now he looks like he's back into his rhythm, and he looks good. He looks strong, Paul.
22.5 minutes elapsed on the clock, which is right where we were when the winners in the A race came across. So we've seen a very strong performance by Goulet, but also put in perspective by what we saw in that A race as well. Goulet in total control here in the latter stages. He will make the turn for home here momentarily and will close out the victory in this B race, making relatively quick work of the finish. Karui's got a little bit of spring in his leg, trying to do everything he can to close the gap. Goulet maybe no idea that Karui's closing at all, but it's probably not going to be enough real estate for Karui to reach Goulet in time. Rest of the top 5 also in a nice race for placings here in Low Sticks in this B race. Definitely the team race up for grabs with Purdue leading into the final stretches, but no one's going to catch Mohamed Goulet out of Utah Valley. The senior takes the win here in the B race. Karui will close the gap, almost a half of the gap he had after 6,000 meters, 6.5 seconds behind Guled in finishing in second. And then right behind him, Purdue will go 3 and 4 with Nathan Walker and Douglas Buckeridge, as Purdue gets a strong couple of low stick showings here on their pursuit for the B victory as those teammates celebrate with each other at the finish line. It's Necker of South Dakota State in fifth, and the rest of the top 10 beginning to cross the line. Barcia of Washington State, the second Cougar across the line. We'll see if Washington State can improve on those performances behind their top two runners to move up in the standings. It was a great battle, Carrie, for the top 5 positions. Purdue looked like they were well on their way to victory here. We'll see if they can hold on. They have got 4 across the line now as the rest of the runners reach the famous arch here at Zimmer Championship Racecourse to conclude our racing day. Purdue first with 5 as they now unofficially have the team victory with 73 points.
You could see that the Purdue jersey coming in fast and furious, especially with those top 2 guys on their team, Walker and Buckeridge. Big hugs by each other. They were really pleased with that effort, and to know that their team had such a great day, they're all going to be happy coming back hopefully in November.
Yeah, see Washington State with that strong finish with their top 4, but still waiting for their 5th athlete to come across the line, see if they'll move up at all into the standings. Illinois, Ohio State, Yale, and Utah Valley are currently the top 5. See Illinois' spread, 27.5 seconds between their 11th place finisher in Partlow and Cushing in 48th position. Ohio State spread 44.5 between 9th and 65th. Washington State did get their 5th runner across the line. They have moved back up into the top 5 behind Yale, Ohio State, Illinois, and Purdue.
See, it just goes to show you every single position counts. You got to keep going, no matter if you're 1st or 5th on the team, or 7th.
Watching these final few runners get to the finish line to wrap up the day of racing here at the Zimmer Championship course in Madison, Wisconsin. But no one got to the line faster in the B race than Mohamed Guled of Utah Valley. He's with our Keenan Gray.